So I'm here with Jack Fuhrman. He's a student at Michigan Tech. And for some assignment, you're here to ask me about what? AI in workplace or?
AI's involvement in, well, the broad context is AI's involvement in the workplace and in specifically the writing field. But my specific topic is AI in your writing field, in your classroom and in your work that you do throughout the campus and in the ECE department.
Gotcha. So I figured I might as well just, he's got to do his recording and I might as well do my recording and share it as well. Just because why not record stuff?
Yeah, why not? Works out well. So why don't we start off with the first big question. How do you feel about the creation of AI and sort of its introduction into society?
I'm an optimist, very big optimist. I know that there's all sorts of things that are muddied up, but honestly, like this table has some woodwork features on it, quote unquote woodwork. It's not real woodwork, right? This is like some sort of like particle board with some sort of veneer over the top of it.
Sure.
Did the woodworker get angry when that started existing? Right? They probably didn't get that angry. I don't know. Yeah. But I know artists are pretty angry. And I'm not trying to discredit those feelings for people like being upset about like AI generated like writing or art or things like that. But I just think it's just another method to produce things or get jobs done.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Sort of like how if that was a real woodwork table, it'd be probably 3 times the price.
Yeah, so it would have more value because it has that human touch.
Sure.
Right. So we're never going to lose the value of the human touch. I think the thing that's more scary is being able to discriminate when the human touch was actually present and when it wasn't.
Sure. Definitely. How do you feel about AI being used in your classroom and in your personal work?
Well, so there are 2 questions. In my classroom, I'm totally cool with it. There's some cases where I try and constrain, like you saw in the final exam last semester, like I made sure it was in person just because I want it to be easy to grade, but I don't fully trust saying, I'm okay with AI being used except for like the real assessment.
Sure.
Right, so like those are things like exams. And I think the reason for that is not necessarily because I'm not okay with AI being used, it's because it's hard for me to have a level playing field. Some people might be paying for tools that others aren't paying for, and so what that does is causes inequities, and because you have more money, you now can perform better.
Sure.
And so I'm totally cool with it even being used for exams, but I don't currently have a way to level that playing field. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
But you know, if you can use it to get your assignments done quicker, I think, because the fact of the matter is that employers or companies are looking for ways to leverage this to increase their productivity, and so we would be doing a disservice to you to not be integrating it and showing how to use it in workflows.
Sure, and it seems, just with my other interview, it seems that that's sort of a general consensus across multiple professors in the ECE department, that exams are sort of the true assessment, and if you want to use it to speed up your homework, that's totally fine, but the real assessment is your own knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. That's a good concept.
See, you'd also asked about
your personal work. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do use it. I pretty much only use it when I already know what the answer is or what it's supposed to be. In terms of like, the example for some reason I always use is I needed to write a paragraph on how to make a Google Scholar prompt.
Okay.
Right? And I already know what it should look like. And so I just typed in a 1-word description and then generated it. And then it was like, you know, and then it created this like thing that I could dissect and change, but it saved me like, 5 minutes of thinking.
Right.
So, but things that I don't know the answer to, I usually don't use it as much.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it experimentally, like, for example, this little 3D printed part. I designed it in OpenSCAD, and so OpenSCAD, the S in SCAD stands for scriptable CAD.
Okay.
And I wanted to see if I could use ChatGPT to generate this.
Interesting.
I knew I could do this on my own, but I was just curious to see. And so this hole pattern that the motor connects to was really, it had one little mistake where it only made 2 holes, and I said it's supposed to have 4 holes in a square, and it fixed that. But then this slot here, I spent way more time debugging it and trying to get ChatGPT to get what I actually wanted than if I just would have did it by hand. So a lot of my usage is experimental, just to see what the upper bounds are.
Sure.
Because I think it's important for me to figure out, because there's studies or surveys that are showing that students are substantially outpacing professors with the usage of these tools. And so I feel like I have to overcompensate by seeing like where all these limits are, just to be, at parity with students.
Yeah, and catch up with them. Interesting. How do you feel your class has changed since AI was introduced? Have you had to redesign any assignments or rewrite anything so that it's not? Oh yeah.
So how my class has changed? Well, like I said, I personally am kind of taking my exams offline, just because, once again, that level playing field.
Totally.
But the only way it's really changed is I'm encouraging students to use it more, right? So, the class that I think has the power to be the most effective that I kind of changed last semester, and I'm probably going to change more, is my robot operating systems class.
Okay.
Because it's a class that doesn't really have any big programming prereqs, but robot operating systems touch on like 5 or 6 different programming languages.
Sure.
And so for me to teach all that would just be background crap that I can't teach about what I really care about teaching in that class.
Right.
And so one of the introductory assignments I had last semester was using ChatGPT to make a bash script, right? So to use it just to see what it's capable of, and just have a safe space to kind of do that experiment. So that's the kind of things that I'm thinking is like, how can I use it to empower students so I don't have to talk so much about the stuff that's background information.
Sure.
Also, one of the new features with ChatGPT 4 is you can create a custom GPT. And so what that might look like is, one of the big pain points for students is always labs, right?
Right.
Because there's one lab, there's one TA, and there's sometimes a lab assistant. But even then, everyone's running the same issues, a bunch of hands up, people waiting around.
Right.
And so what a custom GPT might look like is something that has all the resources, it has whatever, like it has like the lab, it might even have the solution, it might have like the debug manual for whatever software you're using. And then you can ask your question there. You don't have to give it context. You can just say like, why is the light not turning on? And since you trained it with that information, it already kind of knows all your context, and it can say like, well, did you check this voltage or did you do that? Because you can even give it prompts saying like, don't give them the answer directly. You need to ask questions and lead them to it and things like that.
Wow.
So that's
okay.
So the problem right now is that GPT, you have to have GPT-4 to use that.
Which is the paid version.
Which is the paid version, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, but I think we're actually working with Provost and to get paid version for everyone. There was actually just an article that came out a couple days ago that I think a university in Texas now has like a site license for GPT.
Wow.
So there's a precedent for it now.
Interesting. And actually in our advanced composition class, we have a class, not GPT-4, but a class-wide ChatGPT as well. A couple students were anxious about using it, rightfully so, because they haven't experienced ChatGPT before, but our professor, Holly Hassel, really wanted us to use it. And we use it pretty hands-on in class as well, which is nice. So with the change, not a huge change in your class, but you were talking about sort of lab manuals in general, maybe throwing them in AI. Are you using AI to write any of your lab manuals or any of your ECE department documents?
Not really. I mean, I've had it. like I said, I had it help like create like some like assignment stuff, or something I have done is gave it for creating multiple choice questions is I would give it the question and the solution and say, using that solution, make a couple mistakes with it to generate some wrong answers.
Oh, nice.
Right, because that's making a good multiple choice question is hard because you do have to think about all those like mistakes that you can make.
Right.
And I've found a decent amount of success using that, so it just makes the exam writing process
A little
easier.
bit easier. Okay.
Yeah, so I've used that. So now everyone's going to try and reverse engineer the fact that I just said that. But yeah, and I mean the other thing is, and it's just kind of the fact of being a professor is like once you teach a class a few times, a lot of the stuff you already have kind of established, and so I'm in a state where most of those things. If I was doing something right now, like a new class, I probably would use it a little bit more to kind of help flesh things out. I found it's great for writer's block. Like when I don't know what to write, I'll just say what I need to write there and have it generate a paragraph and then say like, okay, and then build around that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's
Totally.
great to just push you in the direction you need to go.
For brainstorming.
Yeah.
And I've heard many people say that AI is actually really good for brainstorming. So, and I actually use it in my own life for brainstorming. So it works out really well. It's really good for that.
I mean, even in the engineering process or the making process, saying like I have an idea and it's kind of touching on fields that I don't know a lot about. Like I don't know what parts I might want to use or something like that.
Sure.
I could ask ChatGPT what parts should I use or how might I put this together. And I mean, you might be able to get the same effect with Google, but I found GPT has been working better in terms of saying like, well, you should use this kind of router and this and this. And I can say like, but I want it to be smaller. And it would say like, oh, well, you might want to look at this sort of module or something.
It's a little more detailed almost rather than
Yeah, and just the interactive aspect of saying like, I like that, but I want it to be smaller. And I mean, just I know that it's not going to tell me exactly what I need to do, but just giving me some like those keywords and things that I can like Google or search more.
Yeah, makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Totally. How do you feel AI could be integrated into your work, whether it be like writing lab manuals, or like you said, you've pretty much written most of your stuff, but if you were to create a brand new class, how do you think you would use AI to write the lab reports or the functional documents if you were creating a new device? Or even just how do you think lab or AI could be integrated into the ECE department in general? Specifically in the writing portion, not necessarily or even like I've heard a lot of students use ChatGPT for circuit design as well, and just now that it's becoming more advanced, you can start using it for more detailed things, but mainly the writing portion and the creation portion.
Yeah. So if I had to make a new class right now, I was looking to leverage it. I think. Let me think. You know, one of like the things I think is when I make homework problems, I like to put like, so the way I do my homework, for those that don't know, is I'll do a homework problem on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and pace it out. So it's, you can either front load it or you can at least pace yourself. You can't really procrastinate. Anyways, and I put like a little blip about why this problem's important or like what the context is. And so I think like things for that, I would have ChatGPT just generate that, right? Just kind of tell what the context is. And obviously, always will change things, but something along those lines. I guess, yeah, so something else I have used it for is I'll say, I need to write a lecture on fasteners, right?
Okay.
What are 20 slides that I should have in this lecture? And it is, boop, boop, you should talk about screws, you should talk about nails, you should talk about rivets.
Nice.
And then I'll just go into PowerPoint and I'll just make that slide. And, and it's nice just to have that conversation with the tool saying like, why didn't you include glue? Or
right.
that's a handy thing. There's someone else in our department that says like, ChatGPT is this really smart yes man friend. You know what I'm saying? And so being able to just like bounce that off there, it's really nice because the fact of the matter is, making a class is a very individual experience. Like it's pretty
Right.
much like you do your class, make it. And so you don't really bounce that much off of other people. It's not super collaborative, at least from what I've seen.
Right.
So there's that as well. But yeah, so being able to generate like lists. Once again, it's like I have the ability to generate those lists, but it just is nice because the thing I'm probably thinking is going to be pretty similar to
Right.
what the tool
What the
spits
tool's
out.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like talking to someone that's of equal intelligence.
Yeah.
Talking to yourself almost, and yourself responding with things that you might not have thought of right away, which is really nice. How does we talked about like you use it for homework questions or writing little blurbs for each question. How does AI affect the writing you do for the ECE department specifically? So maybe documents going further up or proposals that you make, or really just in your teaching field. I know you probably, or I'm pretty sure you didn't really work in industry very much, did you? Okay. No, you came right to teaching.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. So specifically in the ECE field, pushing documents up, or in the ECE department rather than field, but pushing documents up and stuff like that.
Yeah. I haven't used it a ton for official things. I think the only thing I really had used it for, and maybe some coworkers will get angry about this, but is we're talking about revamping really the whole curriculum, right? And one of the things that the members were tasked with, the one thing that we were tasked with starting out was finding all the topics that were essential for a specific major. And so I had robotics. And so the first thing I did is I asked ChatGPT, what are 150 things that someone that's going to robotics should know?
Sure.
Right? Yeah. And the reason I didn't say 20 or 30, right? I said 150 is because I knew a bunch of them I can just cross out or whatever. But you got to remember that ChatGPT is just applied statistics. That's all it is. And so statistically, those are most likely to be the things. And there were some things that weren't mentioned, but generating a list of 150 things for me to sit down and do that would be
take forever.
Yeah, and so that was one real instance that I used it, and it was nice. And the thing is, we went to the meeting, and there were a couple things that were like, why is that on there? And I was like, yeah, that's right. Why is it on there? But we fed it through our filter, and it just got put in with all their genuine stuff, and it turned out to be fine, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I think you have to be careful about picking your usage of it. And the biggest thing is, and that's the problem that we face as educators, is I know I can use the tool for some things because I already know what the right answer is.
Sure.
Right? But for students, you don't always know what the right answer is, right? Because you're learning. And so you might look at something and say, oh, 4,050,000, that looks right, but it's actually only supposed to be like 4,000,
Right.
So I think one of the abilities that educators need to push even more is teaching students how to have discernment, right?
Right.
To like be able to discern what really is right. And I mean, that's always been an important skill, but I think even more so now.
Okay.
But then other official documents, luckily I don't have to write so many official documents.
Sure.
So I haven't really been doing it. Another usage that I've been using is, if you're watching this video, you're watching on YouTube right now. And so all my other videos, my new ones, is I do feed it through like an AI thing to get like search engine optimization and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
nice.
like
Okay.
I'm getting like the text description, all that stuff, so it's more likely to get picked up. Yes, that's just another thing I've been using it for.
Nice. And final question, how do you see AI changing the writing in your field? I mean, obviously, you said you don't do a ton of writing, but do you see AI ever becoming, even if it's just for students, do you see AI ever becoming a standard or almost like a a MATLAB type tool where you kind of just, every student knows it, or more Mathematica maybe in the ECE department. Every student knows it and uses it very often.
So, I have a theory on that. I almost guarantee I'm going to be wrong, but I see this all the time. An engineering student applies for 300 jobs, and they're like, oh yeah, I use ChatGPT to write my cover letter. And they might feel ashamed of that or something along those lines. But then it turns out that the recruiter is using AI to filter through all the things anyway.
Right.
And so if AI is writing the cover letter and the recruiter's using AI to read the cover letter, why not just get rid of the cover letter?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and it becomes an equity thing. Who has the better tools and all that stuff? So here's what I envision a future in like 60 years is documents and papers are shorter and more to the point, right? And right, I imagine like a PDF viewer where it says like, I use nodal analysis. And instead of describing what the heck nodal analysis is, you can scroll over it and AI will immediately look at the context of the paper and spit out what they were talking about there.
Okay.
Right? And
Yeah.
so you just write assuming that anything that you are talking about can eventually be explained by an AI tool later as needed. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Oh yeah, totally.
So what I'm really hoping is that AI will usher an era of brevity, right? So we just have shorter writings.
Shorter documents. And it's really nice, especially when you already, especially as someone that's a higher level intelligence, or not intelligence, but higher level learner, you kind of read these documents, especially from students, and they are like, oh, I use nodal analysis, and they fully explain nodal analysis.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, I know nodal analysis.
Yeah.
I want to read your document, but the full first page is on nodal analysis. I don't really care about that anymore.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see that actually happening. That's a pretty good theory. Yeah. But with that, that's my last question. Do you have any questions for me?
What's your what has been your perspective as a student in terms of other professors, not just me and the other professor that you interviewed, but just what has been your kind of pulse that you've seen on AI in terms of the way that professors have been embracing it?
Sure. Well, so Professor Hassel, Holly Hassel, she actually embraces AI and actually wants us to sort of delve into it, maybe not use it, but sort of see what it can do to analyze the strifes of writers in the field currently. A lot of teachers and writers are very anxious about AI, and we read articles all the time of teachers basically saying that AI is far better than their students. And it sounds terrible to say, but I mean, it should be better than a 5th grade or a 6th grade student that has access to a computer. So she's kind of the front side of AI and keeping us sort of in the loop with AI. And then other professors I've seen where, you know, you get the threats of, oh, if you use AI at all, I will know and I will send you to the dean and you'll get a 0 on the assignment and all of that. And, you know, you see horror stories online of just students that have been caught for using AI when they don't use AI because AI is becoming good enough to kind of replicate people. So most teachers that I've run into, now I don't, this semester is a full Haas semester, so I've got a lot of different perspectives, which is pretty cool, but most perspectives don't really care about it, don't really want to talk about it, just if you use it, don't use it for super important things, and you know, sort of your opinion. If you use it for homework, whatever, but if you're using it for writing documents, we're going to know and we're going to give you a 0 on it. But in the rare occasion, specifically in the ECE department, it's, use it, see how it goes. So,
I think another important thing to put on that is being in the habit of citing that you are using it.
Right, yep.
Right. Let the world know that you are using it. I know some people aren't going to do that, but I just think it's nice to do that. Right?
And I mean, you're covering yourself. Because in case, I mean, especially with AI kind of pulling from multiple documents, if it plagiarizes a good portion of someone's paper, you want to say AI did that, not me, you know? So, But yeah, that's all. That's my opinion on that. Yeah.
Coolio. All right.
Well, it was nice chatting with you.
For sure.
Thank you for letting me interview you.
Yeah. And whoever watches is probably going to want pizza by the time they...
Definitely.
actually
I mean,
listen.
I do. And I'm
Sorry.
sitting right here. No.
Cool.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.